Book 1, Law of Salimi Chapter 21, titled Lecturer Who Despises Challenge. This chapter will commence with the discussion of my study method during my second semester at UiTM campus Manggata. The following are my subjects that I took in the second semester of 1999 and 2000. As you can see here, we have accounting, mainstream English, principle of economics, Adasi the second, calculus, business calculus, basic of management, asas pengurusan, basic of Islamic studies the second. For the subject of accounting 2, this is the subject that continues from accounting 1, which I got A- during my first semester. So I strive to excel in this subject during this semester. However, I did not realize the fact that I was about to face a new form of challenge in the subject of accounting 2. In normal situation, most challenges faced by a student in any subject would include difficulty to understand the knowledge or subject-related obstacles. What made my life experience become more adventurous for my second semester was the fact my biggest obstacle for this subject of accounting 2 came from the lecturer. No, for the sake of safeguarding the integrity of the lecturer, I will not disclose her name or any identifying details related to her. In all honesty, I do not keep any ill intent towards her, and in fact, I am willing to admit that she was a great lecturer in teaching accounting too. The only flaw that I assumed to exist in her as a lecturer was the fact that she hated a student like me. Frankly speaking, I do not know the exact reason that contributed towards her reason to seemingly blacklist me from asking any form of questions to her, be it during or after the class. In effect, it seemed as if I was invisible to her during the class of accounting 2. This decision from her behalf would meant that I might probably fail the subject because I am not very good in the knowledge of accounting. Not being able to ask questions to a lecturer during or after class would mean that she would intentionally attempting to fail me in her class. In fact, I remembered that in the first class, she told the students to drop her subject and took accounting 2 with a different lecturer by giving the excuse that accounting 2 was an extremely difficult subject for any student. In addition, most senior students also verified that her failure rate for the subject was very high, and students were discouraged to take the subject under her supervision. Many of my classmates gave in after hearing her advice to drop the subject, but I was adamant to face any challenges regardless of the level of difficulty in passing the accounting 2. It might be possible that she talked to other lecturers who had experience teaching me, and this lecturer decided to challenge me or do her best to fail me in her subject. To me, any lecturer who do not assist the student to strive for the pursuit of knowledge would simply mean the lecturer is not an excellent educator. I see such person as lecturer who despises challenge, regardless of the actual reason, which I might not be able to prove. She does not allow me to ask her any questions during her classes, as well as at her room during her free time. Every time I tried to set up an appointment, she claimed to be unavailable. Later, I discovered that she was only unavailable to me while other students could meet up with her freely. As a reader, what do you think about the meeting with such lecturer? Can she be categorized as a good or a bad lecturer? Is she simply being biased to me? Maybe she was challenging my willpower to succeed in my studies at UiTM campus Manggata. Probably she was trying to be popular at becoming the first lecturer to fail me while studying at UiTM campus Manggata. Notwithstanding, I was not deterred. At first, I was quite angry, but logically speaking, I cannot do anything that might affect her choice to refuse in assisting me in accounting too. Later, I tried to look at it as a new problem that I should find a solution for. I look at it like a calculus problem where there might be several possible solutions arriving at the correct answer. Hence, I started to focus on rational thinking to solve the problem. To me, the problem was simply I cannot learn accounting 2 while ignoring the other obstacles. The only problem that I need to overcome was the fact that the lecturer refuses to assist me or answer my questions. Mathematically speaking, if one lecturer refuses to teach me, I just need to find another who are willing to assist me. Thus, I began searching for another accounting lecturer. After visiting most of the accounting lecturers, I was finally pointed towards this awesome female lecturer who taught me accounting 2 for the banking program students at UiTM campus Manggata. So I began explaining my situation to her, which she understood how the lecturer refuses to answer my question was known to behave in such a way. It seemed that she had a reputation of behaving in the same manner happening to me in her other classes. After quite some time of convincing, this amazing female lecturer agreed to assist me in answering any of my questions related to the subject of accounting 2. Finally, my problem was resolved. Essentially, I would contribute my understanding about accounting 2 to this helpful female lecturer instead of my actual lecturer of the subject in accounting 2. In terms of tactics that I used for this subject, I was experimenting to develop and utilize a new method of smart studying tactic. So, I attended my accounting 2 class, asked questions to another accounting lecturer, and began to do practices with exercise books. When I was done completing the exercise books, I started to practice with past final exam questions. At first, I asked the helpful female lecturer instead of my actual lecturer to check and verify my answers. Soon, I feel that my practice question might be disturbing the helpful female lecturer, even if she did not mind helping me marking my papers. I told her if there were other methods for me to check my answers instead of having to disturb her to manually check my answers. She said that she could lend me answer schemes for the past final examination questions. I agreed and made a photocopy with her permission. By doing so, I managed to practice as much as I wish while not bothering the helpful female lecturer anymore. How much should a student practice to master the subject of accounting? My answer would be as much as possible. Nevertheless, considering that a student like I was at UiTM campus Manggata only had one semester to study, I could only practice a limited time before facing the final examination. Hence, in my case, I went ahead to buy a notebook with A4 sized paper consisting of 100 pages. I tried to find one that matches as much as possible to the final examination answer script papers in UiTM campus Manggata. In this method, I practiced past final examination questions for accounting 2 using the notepad papers. After I was done with one past final examination question, I checked my answers with the answer schemes from the helpful female lecturer. Next, I move on with the next past examination question. This process continued until I used up all 100 pages of the notepad. I continued with a new set of notepad and kept on going until the final examination for accounting 2 arrived. Although this tactic of studying accounting 2 was new and experimental for me, I felt that the result might be better than my method used in my first semester of accounting 1. If you ask me how I would classify my method for the second semester, I categorize this method as smart study tactics. It should produce a better result when studying accounting subject. How would you, the reader, reckon that I did in this subject? Did I fail the subject of accounting 2? Well, before I answer that questions, let me explore other tactics developed for other subjects that I took on my second semester. For the subject of mainstream English, I do not have any special new tactics apart of focusing more on playing video games that uses English language. At my second semester, virtually all books that I used for my studies were using English language. It helped me improve my understanding of English language. I also played Final Fantasy VIII video game on the personal computer. Reading the conversation of the Final Fantasy VIII game in English also helped me to improve English in terms of understanding the complex sentences meant, as well as discovering new English words which requires dictionary to be available nearby. I also watch a lot of English-speaking movies and documentaries. Basically speaking, the tactics used to improve my English subjects were similar to what I implemented during my first semester. In terms of improving my mastery of English language, I deemed that it requires a lot of time and hard work through consistent use of the language in my daily life. I reckon that I cannot develop a faster method that might be possible except enrolling into an English language classes or training courses from a language center or institution. Principle of economics was one of my favorite subjects when studying at UiTM campus Mangatal because I loved the lecturer teaching the subject. The lecturer had the same name as my mother. In addition, she was the head of faculty in business studies program at UiTM campus Mangatal. Moreover, she had a very loving motherly presence about her. As a result, all of the students in our classroom called the lecturer mother. Anyway, I remembered that she told all of her students that in all of her life, she had never gave any student in her class the result of A+. After hearing it, I took it as a challenge thrown at me. For this subject, I strive to get A+ for the final examination. As a lecturer, she was among my favorite lecturers because her loving nature created the feeling of safety and comfort among students. This feature was extremely helpful towards creating an amazing lecturer. A part of that, she was humble even though she was very knowledgeable in the subject of economics. When I asked her questions that was beyond her comprehension, she would answer that she did not know about it and was willing to look for the answer if needed. The ability to admit her weakness teaches me that this humble attribute is something that I should implement in my life. For tactics to excel in economic subject, I utilized the same method in my first semester by focusing during class. Read the whole book several times before entering the class, as well as practice with past final examination questions for as much as possible. It was also similar with the tactic implemented in Accounting 2, which focuses on past final examination questions and checking my answers with lecturer answer schemes. It took me around 200 pages of notes, pad papers used to practice this method on economics. Basically, economics require partially reading and partially practicing with past final examination questions. For Adasi 2, the subject was the continuity of the same subject taught in my first semester. This subject requires reading and putting the knowledge into practice. Business calculus refers to the knowledge of basic mathematics and additional mathematics being applied to the practice of business. The lecturer for this subject was the one scholar that I had mentioned in earlier chapter, with the ability of absolute perfect memory. The lecturer was a man that was able to memorize anything that he read instantaneously. Compared to his perfect memory, my selective memory that required intense emotional charge would seem to be extremely lame in comparison. He was also known to be a genius who took very short time to complete his master's program and at that time was doing his PhD program. The method of study that I used in this subject was focusing during classes, doing practice using exercise books and past final examination questions. In terms of quantity for practice, the general concept is more practice would be better to improve your mastery of this subject. From my experience, when the lecturer assigned to me 10 practice questions, I would do my best to complete the whole exercise books. Never look at homework given by lecturer as chores, but rather as training tools to improve your mental prowess and enhancing your cognitive skills. Next was the subject of Basic of Management, which was also known in Malay as Asas Pengurusan. This was a clearly reading subject. In the standard study method to master any reading subject, I would recommend to simply read and focus on practicing with past final examination questions. In addition, I would also recommend reading the whole book before attending to class and focus to the lecturer's explanation. Apart of that, it would be best to ask questions to the lecturer directly when you need clarification on certain terms that you cannot comprehend on your own. It would be amazingly helpful to be able to provide your own example that can be accepted by the lecturer's correct answer scheme. For example, when the textbook explains about SWOT concept by giving examples on companies like Microsoft, try to include other companies that you can think of, especially local companies that can be added as a similar example to the one given by the textbook. This helps to boost your understanding as well as the skills of application for the concept and your own understanding into real life environment, which is vital for improving your academic performance as well as real life application in your future. It would also be recommended to explore additional knowledge outside of the classroom and textbook, either through reading, real-life experience, or any event that you can observe, experience, and discover, which then can be related to your understanding of the subject matter or the theories that you have learned from the textbook. This is also the level of real-life application which transforms your knowledge from theory into actual life practice or implementation. In fact, from my own experience as a student, by actually doing the theories in your life, It helps you to it helps you solidify your own understanding as well as memory retention. In addition, as explained earlier in earlier chapter, I also realized that by teaching other students of the concept that you learn from the classroom, you will be able to ascertain that you have very strong understanding of the concept and knowledge. Incorporating your own example would further enhance your quality understanding and knowledge of the subject. In terms of management, I always spend my free time observing how different lecturers manage their own room and compare them to the concept of management that I learned from the classroom. Finally, the subject of Basic Islamic Studies 2, which is also an extension of the same subject that I took during the first semester at UiTM campus Manggata. This is also a reading subject where everything that I described for the subject of management above can be applied to this subject or field of knowledge. Moreover, I feel that it is much easier to improve my understanding for Islamic studies when I implement the knowledge that I learn from the subject into part of my lifestyle. Considering that I am pursuing to practice Islam as a way of life, this subject is among my favorite field of knowledge. Furthermore, in most cases, I feel that the lecturer teaching the subject of Islamic studies will serve as the best role model in terms of being a good human being, as well as an amazing characteristics of lecturer. The reason behind this was the fact that most lecturers on this subject were also a great scholar who were extremely passionate about knowledge. Almost all of them were walking the same path that I took, which was the path of pursuing knowledge. The best part of all, most of them were already at a very high level of skills and knowledge, which was achieved through the most humble journey based on the teachings of Islam. When I look at them, I saw the role model of human being that I was pursuing to achieve and strive for in my very young life, which was 18 years old at that moment. I do not know how other students perceive these great scholars, but to me, I can see their talent and ability, which were above the average human being. I can sense their charisma and character in everything that they do. I can feel the special ability brimming in their heart, which seemingly be invisible in the eyes of other students. I honestly cannot truly describe the feelings that I had with accuracy using the words that I had been writing in this book. At least I can try my best to describe the magnificent and the majestic of their talents and abilities, which I feel would not do justice to its amazing nature. If you, the reader, are familiar with the concept of aura, I would describe that these astonishing scholars had very special aura surrounding them. The aura were invisible to normal students, but to someone who can sense it, the aura were marvelous. It was like trying to describe the amazing characteristic of a gorgeous sunset, which can be felt but very rarely been successfully described using words. The same analogy can be said when a person tried to describe the words with words, the events of an aurora borealis. I do not think that any word would be suffice to accurately explain the natural beauty of it to another person. The best way that I can think of would be the person to have actually experienced it firsthand. Reading from a book or even looking at pictures might not be able to do justice or recreate the experience of actually seeing it with your own two eyes. Hence, the same goes when I see the aura of these amazing scholars at your ITM campus Manggata. Who are they? What are their names? I sense that it would not be fair for me to mention their name considering that most of them were very humble human beings and probably do not wish to seek popularity from the masses. As any other scholars who walk the path of knowledge, most of us do not seek admiration from other human beings. All I can say is the scholars' aura are very captivating to anyone who can see them. Luckily for me, I was able to see not only their aura, but was also lucky enough to share their knowledge and wisdom. Every time I was free and available, I will be in one of these scholars' room to discuss about life, study, knowledge, and everything beyond the average student's concern, which include the concept of Islam, philosophies of knowledge, and many amazing issues affecting mankind on this earth. Nonetheless, my odd behavior of spending time with these scholars might create problems and enemies in the upcoming future at UiTM campus Menggata. Okay, with that, we end the chapter 21. Hope to see you again in the next video. Thank you very much for listening and see you.